All right, for now, the conflict in Eastern Europe is contained to two nations, Russia and Ukraine. But what happens if this spills over and becomes a global war? Don't think it's far-fetched. Joining us now, Neil Ferguson thinks about this a lot. A Hoover Institute senior fellow, writes great stuff about conflicts like this, how this could spiral out of control. Neil, is that a legitimate worry?
Well, I think Vladimir Putin wants us to think that it is, because it's part of his strategy of intimidating the West, threatening nuclear weapons or chemical weapons, most recently today saying that they will attack transports of weapons coming from Poland to Ukraine. And unfortunately, the response of the West is to go weak at the knees and say, no, 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 we don't want at any price to fight Russia, because that would be World War III. President Biden tweeted that just today, signaling to Putin that we're desperate to avoid escalation. And this, of course, emboldens him to carry on his war of murder and destruction in Ukraine.
So if we're rational actors, he looks at it as weakness. But yet you want to be national, because if you're the person that could make a decision that would result in blowing up the world, that's a lot to think about. For example, as we look at Europe, you have Russia. If they were to go after one of the Article 5 or one of the NATO nations, Article 5 is enacted. Let's say they go after Poland and follow some truck into Poland and they blow it up. Article 5 goes, so in comes all of NATO. NATO, Slovakia, I'll just enact this. So in comes the Czech Republic, Hungary, all these nations are all in, right? Ukraine, they're all fighting Russia. All they have is Belarus, and that would be a reluctant ally, correct?
That's right. NATO is a very large alliance. It's 30 members, of which the United States is the most important, and it has a very clear commitment. An attack on one is an attack on all. That's Article 5, which is why I think Putin is bluffing. I do not think that he's going to attack Poland. He's struggling to win this war against an isolated Ukraine, which is not a member of NATO. Remember, Brian, part of the reason this war is happening is that we said back in 2008 that Ukraine could join NATO, and then we never followed through. In fact, we kept saying roughly like this, you know, you can join, but how about never? Would never suit you? And that is, of course, why the war began, because Putin was not deterred. There was no Article 5 protection. I think he's bluffing, Brian. I think he was bluffing when he talked about nuclear weapons. I think he's bluffing when he talks about chemical weapons. And I'm absolutely sure he's bluffing if he implies that he could attack a NATO country such as Poland. He would have the entirety of the rest of Europe against him, and of course, the United States. So I think this is a bluff, and we keep falling for it. Consistently, Brian, the Biden administration has shown weakness. All of last year, they took sanctions off Nord Stream 2, the pipeline, to bypass Ukraine. They slowed down weapon deliveries, which they should have in fact been stepping up, and they pledged not to get involved in fighting Russia if there were an invasion. These signals of weakness are the reason that Putin went ahead with his invasion, confident that he would not have to fight anybody other than Ukraine.
I mean, all he would have, he'd have China. People say, well, China jump in. That's, you know, that's up for debate. What he'd have against him is Taiwan. If you look at this region, Japan, South Korea, of course, North Korea would come in on their side. As we look around the world, if you want a true world war, you look at the Middle East. Okay, they would have Syria. Turkey, not supposed to, but who knows? And then they'd have Yemen, perhaps, and maybe Pakistan. But how many people want to blow up their country for Russia? That's the question. And in South Korea, and when you look at South America, they'd have Venezuela. Good luck with that. So I think we should start acting like a superpower who has a superior military and superior nuclear weapons. Final thought, Neil, how does this play out? If I'm to talk to you in 6 weeks, what is the result of this?
I'm very sorry to say that I fear Ukrainian resistance will ultimately be crushed by the sheer might of Russian bombardment. Putin is going to grind out further advances. He still has a chance of encircling and taking Kyiv, and I'm very much afraid that unless the Biden administration changes its strategy and stands up to Putin and tries to bring an end to this war, it is going to end in a hideous and brutal victory by Russia, which will leave Putin intact, and our strategy will have failed completely. That is what I fear we'll be discussing, maybe in less than 6 weeks.
Yeah, I wish you weren't right so often with that result, but sadly, I think you are. Neil Ferguson, thanks so much. Appreciate it. one thing we can all agree on, we want to donate to Ukraine relief. They need your help. So visit redcross.com/.org/FoxForward.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.